Hi, this is Ronald D. Moore, writer of Star Trek and Battlestar Galactica, and you are listening to Authenticity Radio with Slade Suter.
Hey, welcome. Grab a seat anywhere. No, we don't have any menus. The only thing we have today is the freedom to express who you truly are. We call it Authenticity Radio. You'll like it, don't worry. Let me go grab the host. He's got the hospitality of a fat and jolly innkeeper. He's a good guy. Slade Suter.
Welcome and thank you so much for joining us today on Authenticity Radio's Morning Edition. This is Slade Suter. Today's guest is Dr. WilliamUry. Dr. Ury is the co-founder of the Harvard Program of Negotiation. He's also the founder of the Abraham Project Path Initiative throughout the Middle East countries. He has written many books. Some of the most famous is Getting to Yes, which he co-authored with Roger Fisher back in 1981. And Getting to Yes with Yourself and Other Worthy Opponents is his last book, published in 2015. Inside that book, there is a wonderful piece of Going to the Balcony, and we're going to be talking about that. And also a little bit about the breakfast table, bringing all the voices to the breakfast table. So without any further ado, we're going to go to Dr. Ury's backyard, the Colorado Rockies, and that is where we will join the broadcast.
Today we are on location in Boulder, Colorado. We are speaking with one of my heroes, Dr. WilliamUry, who is the author of a gazillion books. Dr. WilliamUry, thank you and welcome to Authenticity Radio.
It's my pleasure, Slade.
It is so wonderful to have you. I'm very, very tickled to have you here. Today's broadcast is From the Balcony to the Breakfast Table.
That's very apt.
And we are actually diving in to a portion, well, actually it's quite the entirety, of Dr. Ury's last book, Getting to Yes with Yourself.
And Other Worthy Opponents.
And Other Worthy Opponents. Wow. Yeah, I guess the first worthy opponent is oneself.
Yeah, now that's what I've discovered is in all the years I've worked, many decades working in the area of conflict, whether it's family or business or world conflicts, is in the end the most difficult person we ever have to deal with, the greatest challenge, the person who really gets in the way of us getting what we truly want in life, is not the difficult person on the other side of the table. Mm-hmm. It's the person on this side of the table. It's ourselves, which also means that we are our own greatest potential ally. And that's what the book's about, is about how to turn ourselves from our greatest opponent to our greatest ally.
You have this wonderful activity of going to the balcony, being able to remove yourself to gain another perspective of oneself in either a negotiation or a conflict.
Yeah, it's just comes from the observation that we human beings we're reaction machines. It's the most natural. It's natural. It's understandable that we react. It's like the old saying goes: "When angry, you will make the best speech you will ever regret." And what I find is the foundation of successful negotiation is this ability to go to the balcony, this metaphor of imagining yourself like you're talking with the other person on a stage. Part of you goes to a mental or an emotional balcony, which is a place overlooking that stage, which is a place of perspective, a place of calm, a place of clarity, a place of self-control, where you can keep your eyes on the prize. What is truly, truly important to you? Because what I find so often is, even though negotiation is supposed to be goal-oriented behavior, we actually get in our own way. And so the ability to, particularly in this frenzied world with cell phones going off and texts and you name it, the ability to stop for a second, listen, and ask yourself, what is my real objective here? What's really going to advance the situation here? I find that that's the key competence that we need in today's times, is that ability to go to the balcony.
We have a lot against us whenever we open a dialogue with someone else, or negotiations with another partner. And I wrote some notes down. One is a fear of scarcity, of thinking that there's a limited resource. And then you pointed out many times over and over again of coming to a negotiation with an unprepared BATNA, right, which is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement.
Right.
Good, all right, got that one. Our own hand is part of that. And we don't even recognize that our hands are tied behind our back.
That's it.
And so this is about untying ourselves, recognizing ourselves, and becoming free.
That's it. That's exactly it. It's about. I call it the process. I call it getting to yes with yourself. Is realizing that all conflict, all difficulties start right here, and if we can free ourselves and really understand what we truly want and align ourselves with it, we can. There's incredible power that we have to be able to influence others and to be able to get what we actually need in life. So the key, many years ago, I co-authored a book called Getting to Yes with Roger Fisher, and what I've found is that there's actually a missing first half, which is that if we can get to yes with ourselves, it's going to become a lot easier for us to get to yes with others.
And that yes, when you mention power, it doesn't have to be strength. It can be very gentle.
That's true. That's exactly it. It's power to do things. It's power to fulfill your dreams, to fulfill your perspectives. It's not power over the other.
Yeah.
We confuse those two sometimes.
Yeah. I mean,
it's power to rather than power over.
Sure. And the feeling is very different. Yeah. Learning how to start recognizing yourself from the balcony.
Right.
So can you talk to us a little bit from a perspective of individuals who have had little practice on being able to see themselves from a perspective apart from how they feel? Sure. It's really trapping.
Yeah, it's true, and we see it these days. Even in a very simple way, you get an email that irritates you. You were at work. You were left out of some decision, or you feel that you're left out. And the simplest thing is, there's a temptation is you immediately compose and you get that satisfaction of hitting the reply button, but you should just hit the reply button. You hit the reply all button, and then it goes out to everyone and the team, everyone in the organization, and you start to see conflict start to escalate. Well, there's a button on that screen which is very rarely used, which I think of as the balcony button, and it says save as draft. And that's where you write it if you like, save it as a draft. Then everyone has their favorite techniques for going to the balcony. Some people like to go for a walk or go for a workout or have a coffee with a friend or sleep on it. But some activity that allows you to get a little bit of perspective so that when you then come back to the screen, you look at that email and then you can ask yourself the very important question of what's going to advance this situation? What is really going to resolve this? What is going to advance my own interests? And as likely as not, having gone to the balcony, you're going to hit the delete button, and then you're going to pick up the phone, call the person, arrange to get together with them, and try to, work it out. But that ability to do that, to pause, hit the pause button, that's the ability to go to the balcony. And the ability to, on the balcony, is what you ask yourself is a simple question of, what do I really want? Because oftentimes what we think we want, if we actually ask ourselves, it may not be truly what we really want. I remember in the book I tell the story of working with a very, a big kind of a business entrepreneur who founded a very large company, and he was stuck in a huge legal battle with his partner, and I mean, it had gone on for like 2.5 years. It was all over the papers. They were hiring, lawyers galore, fighting each other in every way. And, when he asked me for my help, that was the question I asked him was from the balcony question was, what do you really want? And, and he gave a very intelligent answer like most of us give answers. He said, well, I want the stock at a certain price, and I want the elimination of the non-compete clause, and I want a piece of real estate. He had a whole list. But those are, in negotiation, what you call your positions. Mm-hmm. But what do you really want? What's behind the positions? What's the underlying interests or desires? What's your deepest need there? And as I asked him that question, and he kind of sat with it, he said, what do you really want here? You're a man who seems to have everything. Why are you spending your life, consumed with this conflict? Finally, he said, you know what I want? I want my freedom. And then once I knew that that's what he wanted from the balcony perspective, I'd helped him go to the balcony and ask himself that question. Then everything we did was, how do we get him the freedom that he really wanted? And then this case that had been taken 2.5 years, once he'd gotten to that yes inside himself, found out what his yes was, which was freedom. And this was a man for whom freedom actually meant something, because he had once been kidnapped and held in a kind of coffin for a week.
Oh, dear.
So he was, thought maybe, so for him freedom really meant something. He had essentially made himself hostage of the other side. And that's what we often do in negotiation or conflict. We make ourselves the other side's hostage. He took his own power back. Because then I asked him the question, and this goes back to the question of BATNA, which is your best alternative. I said, well, even if, let's imagine you can't resolve the situation, what can you personally do to give yourself that freedom? In other words, I was asking him, is it only the other side, your former partner, your opponent, your enemy, who can give you your freedom? Or to some extent, is it you? And once he realized that, he took his power back. He said, well, okay, what does freedom mean? Well, freedom is like freedom to pursue other deals, freedom to spend more time with my family, he said, which is the most important thing in my life. So he began to spend more time with his family. He began to pursue other deals. And that freeing of himself psychologically from the situation enabled us to close a deal in 4 days that gave him everything that he wanted, all those things that he wanted before, all his kind of positions, everything. He said, I got everything I wanted, but the most important thing I got was I got my life back. I got my freedom. And that to me is kind of that's kind of archetypical of all of us, is that on the balcony, it's so important to really understand what is it we truly, truly want, and who can give it to us. Is it really only the other side, or is it us? Because once we realize it's us, then it becomes a lot easier to solve any situation.
It seems to me that recognizing it and then verbalizing it himself, and then you feeding it back to him over and over again, helped him to stay on track.
That's it. And because, it's not easy, it's not easy to go to the balcony, but it's also not easy to stay on the balcony. We often, we're human, so, he got angry and he got tied up in that, but, we fall off the balcony. But then the ability to get back on the balcony, and my job was to help remind him to keep coming back to the balcony, remember what he truly wanted, help him keep his eyes on the prize so that he could essentially free himself to do what he now does, which is he's amazingly free he says these are the best years of his life, and he's so happy because he was able to kind of break through that knot, which the key was everyone was working on the external situation, and what I was trying to do was help him work on the internal conflict inside him. Was he going to fight for the rest of his life, or was he going to actually seek his freedom? What was most important? And once he realized what was most important, then he was able to break himself free of the situation.
It's amazing, embroiled down in such a conflict, is able to make such a fast turnaround, probably because you assisted him, because I was imagining this probably would have taken a lot longer by oneself if you were alone.
It could be. Sometimes it's useful to have friends and to like in this situation. But I feel like it's kind of to me I use it as an example because to me it's like every one of us could be in those shoes. If ever we get enmeshed in a conflict, we find it hard to go to the balcony. We often fail to really understand what we truly want. And we often, if we can do that, if we can go to the balcony, understand what we truly want, sometimes with the help of a friend, and realize that we have the power, then we can find a solution that actually works for us, that really satisfies our deepest needs, and at the same time satisfies the needs of the other, so that we get to a mutually satisfactory solution. And the other thing I remember at one point when I first met the other side's main negotiator, I began with life's too short, because just to get some perspective, life's too short for these kind of titanic conflicts that not only consume us